Hi, today on this episode of Health Coach for Women, I have the entrepreneurial psychologist, Hema Vyas. Okay, she is an entrepreneurial psychologist, and today she is going to be speaking with us and giving us some great little tidbits. Please welcome Miss Hema
Hema.
Vyas, Hema Vyas to the show.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me. It's such a lovely pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So tell me, how did you get started in psychology, and how did you get started in psychology, and what led you into doing the work that you do now? And tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I would love to. Psychology, it was really interesting. So, it was one of the options that my school gave when I was in high school, basically. And I didn't know anything about it. But, I love synchronicity and I love how life works, because it was years later when I sort of met my aunts and who were living in India at the time, and they all had a passion for psychology, but I never knew that. So it was
Right.
really interesting because I found a course, during my studies, and it was all about human behavior and the mind. And it was so different from anything else I'd been studying, like the sort of normal sciences and geography and history and all the rest of it. And so I just found it really, really fascinating. And I always had a real kind of draw towards people. I love people. I always had a very empathic nature, so I could always sense when somebody was in trouble or when something was going on for somebody. And so, you marry the two up, and, it was a match made in heaven to be able to sort of go in and become a therapist later on in life. But it took a bit of a journey. So I sort of worked in the corporate field for a while, occupational psychology, and then moved into therapy. And now I'm actually an omnipreneurial psychologist. And the difference between an entrepreneur and an omnipreneur is, basically we have the same aspirations in terms of businesses and being interested in lots of different types of businesses to do with psychology, to do with people. But omnipreneurship is really about helping them find their purpose, but also relating that to the planet, in terms of how we can live together collectively, how we can be on purpose, live from the heart, but also make a real positive impact on the planet. Because we're not just here to take from the planet, because the planet gives us so much in terms of nature, but we're also here to give back.
To give back. I love it. I love it. It's so that is so powerful, is that we always want to, when I say we, I mean us as human beings, we always want to take, right? We want to take. How many times we go into different countries and invade other people's countries for resources and things like that. It's not about take. It's about, what about giving, right? And caring for the planet that we live on, and caring for the place that we live, and being in touch with nature and the animals and things like that. I mean, it's truly a beautiful thing. And when you connect with that, it does something for your soul. And what you said was being on purpose. That is so powerful in itself, and having that intention and that drive to live on purpose and to be on purpose in everything that you do, so that you're making a positive impact, not just for yourself and your own happiness and the fulfillment that it gives, but what you're giving back to others as well as the planet. So that is just beautiful in itself. That is beautiful. So one of the questions I want to ask you is, what does the heart got to do with it? And explain to us the role of the heart in leadership and how that works.
Absolutely. So, well, it fits beautifully with purpose and planet. So
Mhm.
basically, one of the things that we're now recognizing, and science is beginning to recognize, but you know, Ayurveda has known forever, and you know, the ancient sort of wisdom has known these things for you know, centuries, but we're now beginning to understand it ourselves, and science is now beginning to prove what we've sort of intuitively known, or what we've known through wisdom, is that, you know, the earth has an electromagnetic field, and that electromagnetic
Mhm.
field, when it connects with the heart electromagnetic field, the heart also has an electromagnetic field, as does the brain, as does the body. And when the two come together, and when there's an alignment between the mind, the body, and the heart, and it connects with the earth's electromagnetic field, suddenly all of us understand our purpose. And we don't need to live in fear of survival or how to be in the world. We suddenly become more conscious and aware of who we are and why we're here and how we fit into the whole. And in doing that, we are able to be better leaders. Because I think it's about, you know, top down. It's about leaders being able to be who they really authentically are, connecting with their own hearts, connecting with their purpose, and really doing it from a very powerful space, and therefore being able to lead from that space. And therefore, every decision they make, every action that they take impacts those people who are working for them, with them, you know, collaborating or working alongside them, allowing them to make the same sort of choices. Because we
Yeah.
need a shift in the world. We need a
Oh, yeah.
shift in leadership.
Yes. And that is so true and powerful in itself, is that yes, we do need a shift. And I agree with you on that, because I did an episode on that, a shift, that, making a shift, that more people are waking up, right? And
Yes.
it's not about a person's culture, their religious background, or whatever it is, right? It's not about that, because
Yes.
at the end of the day, we are all one. We are all human beings. We're all one.
Exactly.
And what I'm seeing now, I'm seeing this, that people are waking up and they are seeing the truth behind
Yes.
the illusion, what is being confronted to them, right? They are
Yes.
seeing the truth of what really is. And
Absolutely.
and I love it, and it may not happen overnight, but
Mm-hmm.
I truly believe that a change and a shift is coming in a major way that's going to serve all of humanity. And we are the ones that's doing it. We are the ones that's doing it. In addition to
Absolutely.
those others who may not be entrepreneurs or anything like, but who want to just make an impact, and to serve, and to, to just to be a good person on the planet, and so I love that. It's so powerful, and a lot of people still don't understand it because they're just not there yet. And
Absolutely.
you can't fault them for that. But as they develop self-awareness, as they develop that, they will see that the clarity comes. It comes, and then they will understand the things that they didn't understand before, because it's very clear to me. It's very clear to you and I should say.
Exactly.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
definitely. And another thing is, when you talked about the electromagnetic field, I wanted to mention about grounding. How we connect with the earth if you're walking on. There's the science, proven science behind that, that you can ground, and there's the electrons and whatever the scientific things that's happening. It helps us in our bodies. It's actually
Absolutely.
causing healing.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely, and that's so beautiful, because you know, it's understanding that we've known this, but we've moved away from it. You know, this is sort of, you know, real old wisdom, but we've moved away from it. And now, as you say, people are waking up, because as we disconnected from our hearts, as we
Mhm.
became very kind of cerebral about all about the mind and about the brain, we kind of lost that connection to our hearts. And in losing
Yeah.
that connection to our hearts, we lost connection to the wisdom that is there, that organic, intuitive knowingness,
Yeah.
you know, how nature is so powerful, how we are all one, what is the truth. And that
Mhm.
truth resides in our hearts.
Right.
And as we disconnect from our hearts, as we get bombarded with lots of messages from the outside world, it sort of, covers over the truth, and we then lose our ability to be able to discern what it is and what it is not. And so
Right.
now I think people are disconnecting from the external world again, and they're going, I want to go in, and they're wanting to journey inwards to find the answers, because they realize that the outside external preoccupation and the outside world is not giving us what we want. You can achieve all levels of success or all levels of wealth and still be deeply unhappy, and you have to ask yourself why.
Right. Right.
And the
Definitely.
truth is, the reason is because we're not on purpose, and we're
Right.
not connected to planet Earth, and we're not connected to others, because
Right.
real happiness, real prosperity, real success lies in being connected to ourselves, knowing who we are, why we're here, and connecting with others and working, together in a beautiful kind of symphony, if you like,
Right.
to really raise a vibration and to live a much, much more prosperous life,
I
because
agree
that's
with
why
you.
we're here.
That's it. I agree with you 100% on that. And it's so when we talk about that grounding and being heart centered, that leads me to my next question now. How do we align the heart and the mind and body intelligence? Because we know that they're not separate. We know that they do work together. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. Great question. Thank you for
You're
asking
welcome.
that. So I would say that, if you look at how, what happens in the body when a baby is formed, when, that little fetus sort of begins to form, the heart is the first thing that grows. And so the heart is where all the information is held, and it then sends out messages to the brain, and it creates the brain in the heart, creates the brain in the brain, and the brain in the gut. And it informs every part of our body to come into being. That intelligence, the body wisdom and the mind wisdom, comes from the heart wisdom. And so how we align to it is literally disconnecting from the outside world so much, really being able to take some time in our day to connect with nature, some time in our day to connect with ourselves. There are so many tools, but one of the main things as humanity that we need to do is to heal ourselves.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
because
that is so important. That's why I'm talking about spiritual healing, and
yes,
not just because when you get that spiritual healing, you can heal so many other things in our
exactly.
bodies and our lives all together. And that's so important because a lot of people are also dealing with past trauma, past experiences, right? That has left them in the state of where they are right now with depression, anxiety, self-sabotage, all of these things, and not being able to find that true happiness that they're seeking because they're lacking that self-love within themselves. So that's so
Absolutely.
important. It's
It's
so
so
important.
it's so important, and it's not just this lifetime. Whether you believe in past lives or not, the fact
Mhm.
is that our genes hold ancestral memories. Our
Yes.
genes hold memories of, many, many lifetimes, grandparents, great grandparents, you go far back as you want. And
Mhm.
we're holding all of this in our DNA, in our genes. And so the healing has to happen for us to get back to truth, to get back to genuine heart alignment with the
Right.
mind, with the body, with the earth, with others. We have to be able to heal some of those traumas. We have to heal some of the untruths, the illusions, the deceptions, that we've been living with, the stories. The biggest
Mhm.
story from my
Mhm.
point of view is that we need to do so much to survive. So many people are now simply living on survival.
Yes.
Everything is about survival rather than thriving. And
Right.
even when you have a secure job, when you have a secure relationship, a secure home, you're constantly worried about losing it. There's this constant fear that a majority of people have.
Mhm.
And that is a big lie.
Right.
because that is not where we're meant to be living. That is something that we grow out of. It's something we have as children because, we do sort of need to be looked after. And as we grow up, we have the resources, we have the wisdom within us to know what is right and what is not. But of course, over the centuries, we've lost that connection, and
Yeah.
we've been fed this lie. And that's one of the lies that we have to heal
We
and
do.
get
We
back to
have
the
to
truth.
heal. I think, and healing not just on our with our individual selves, but it starts with us first, because we cannot heal
Absolutely.
ourselves first and then try. We can't heal ourselves first without healing ourselves and then going outward to heal,
Exactly.
to work on healing others, right, and the planet
Absolutely.
as a whole. So that is
Exactly.
so important. I think when for me, I just wish that much more people would get it, which I think, like I said, it's happening. But I wish much more people would get it and understand it, and that
Yes.
we're not alone. You're not alone in this universe. There is a bigger purpose for your life. The divine, the creator, God, the universe, whatever you choose to call it, there is a bigger purpose for our lives. And it starts with loving and healing ourselves, loving and healing our bodies, taking care of ourselves, right? As well as our families. That's important. We know that. And not living in the state of fear that have us on flight mode and stress mode, which is causing the disease as well as the food, right? And you are already aware of this. Living in
Absolutely.
stress mode is causing the disease. It's causing all of these toxins building up in our bodies. And
Absolutely.
how can we heal? How can we heal if we're always operating from this place of lack, negativity, stress, fear, anxiety, depression? We have to stop with the lies and put the truth out there. So that's what you and
Absolutely.
I are doing, and I love it. I mean, I just wish everybody would get it.
I do too. And I
I do.
think that that's part of the reason, having worked as a therapist and working one on one and then working as a mentor to a lot of people,
Yeah,
I sort of realized that it's not even just about the groups, because I've worked
right,
with groups, facilitating workshops and retreats, but it's realizing that actually I've got to go bigger. I've got to go bigger with the messages.
right,
That's why I'm doing the
right.
podcast like you are. And
Yes,
that's why I want to get into organizations where the leaders can
right.
begin to have a positive impact on those people who are
Mhm.
working underneath them and making better choices and making better decisions. Our work life has to change. There has to be a genuine balance. When we're working 5 days a week, some 6 days a week, and when we're working longer hours than just the regular 7 to 8 hours, because more and more people are putting in more hours
Yeah,
in order to survive, in order to get
mhm,
through the week, to get through the month, to get through
right.
to have the holiday or the time off or whatever they might need. And it's like, wow, that's so counterintuitive.
I
It's
know.
so counterintuitive. That
I
is
know.
not why we're here. So of course there's a build-up of disease and all the conditions that you talk about, like depression and anxiety, the unhappiness and the diseases that are kind of growing and growing. With all the technological medical advances, there's all of this sort of, you know, people are struggling with stuff, and you have to ask
Yeah.
yourself why.
Why? You have to ask
Yeah.
yourself why. And they're so focused on the news, on everything that's going on in the world that they're
Yes.
watching on mainstream media, with this and that happen and all these things that's just causing more depression, causing you to be
Yes.
more stressed instead of
Absolutely.
really looking inward and really really taking time to really, what I say throughout this whole pandemic situation is, what I was saying was that this is the time. Now, this is the time to adapt and change, and learning how to adapt in times of crisis. Times
Yes.
of crisis, and you can. This is when you can reinvent yourself. Use this
Exactly.
time to reinvent yourself. Maybe you don't need a job after all. Maybe you need to start your own business. Maybe you need to start doing some community work. Whatever it is
Hmm.
that you feel on that inside, that inner knowing of yourself, right? That inner
Yes.
knowing, and it doesn't go away. I call it this soul urge that your soul knows. You may not even know yet, but your soul knows there's a burning hidden desire of something that you should be doing greater than yourself, and it's bigger than you and I. It's much bigger than you and I.
Absolutely. And the irony is that when you have the courage to find that truth and to follow your heart, then you will find that the universe rewards you in so many ways.
Yes.
It's certainly what I've done. I assume it's something you've done, but also what I've
Mm-hmm.
seen so many people who've worked through stuff and cleared stuff and found that truth and gone, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to follow this truth.
Right.
And then the universe just completely supports you in making it
Mm-hmm.
happen, because that's the thing about being on purpose. If you're on purpose, you're not alone. You're
Right.
literally not alone.
Right.
Every aspect of the universe is behind you. And I know that it's not easy for somebody to know that until they've experienced it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a
Mm-hmm.
catch-22. How do they experience it unless they find the courage to act on it? And so I
Right.
loved what you said, find something small, even if it's, going, okay, this is the time to reinvent myself. I've had this, big thing that's happened in the world, that's happened globally.
Right.
And the biggest thing that's happened is that it's given us time to pause. It's given us time to sit back and go, okay, who am I? I
Yeah.
actually have 5 minutes to just reconnect with myself and
Mm-hmm.
decide what's really important. And then we realize all the things we thought were so important that we were doing in a day, running around all over the place, we suddenly realize it wasn't so important after all, because we all survived. We're all here, you
Right.
know, despite not doing all the things that we were doing. And
Yes.
maybe it's finding a way to give back somehow. Maybe it's finding a way to do something different. Maybe it's, really, really stopping, going, what is the message from the universe with what's
Mm-hmm.
happened,
Mm-hmm.
instead of what's, mainstream media telling me about what's happening. What meaning do I want to give to it? Because,
Right.
life is a story, and it's all about
It
the
sure
meaning
is.
that we give it, right?
It sure is. And you said take time to pause. Yeah, pause and reflect, right?
Yes.
And it's during times of adversity that you are going to be called to be pushed into action.
Yes.
It's like something is pushing you, like you have to make a change, but you have
Mm-hmm.
to want it also. You're either going to stay stuck or you're
Mm-hmm.
going to make the decision and decide to push for something better, what you want for your life. So everything you want is right there. You already have it, the abundance, everything you want. It's all in how you perceive it in your mind. And you've got to believe it.
Absolutely.
I love it. This is just so beautiful. Now, tell me about the role and the emotion of intuition. And you did touch on it before about intuition and cognition and leadership. And I say there's really honestly,
Mhm.
there really should be more women in leadership, because men operate from a place of ego, right? And it's like they always have something to prove.
Mhm.
And I think with women, because of our soft, nurturing nature, we're
Mhm.
more heart centered. And not to say that men
Yes.
aren't, but we more operate from a place of our heart and making and trying to make the best decisions, right? And a lot of things with war and this and that and invading other countries, it's all based on out of ego,
Mhm.
rather than love. It's not
Mhm.
based on anything on love. It's more from that ego perspective. Wouldn't
Mhm.
you agree?
Um, well, I
To
love
some
what you
point, at
say, but
least to some point, yes.
yeah, yeah. But I would like to give you my sort of thoughts on that, if that's okay
Oh,
with you. I'd love to
sure,
share
sure.
with you.
Yes, I love, even if we don't all agree, that's okay, and that's what I love is everyone have their own points and to bring to the table, and I'm all for it.
Wonderful. That's how we learn and grow, right?
How we learn and grow.
Absolutely. So you see, what I would say is that men are very cerebral, and women, they come from the mind brain, and women tend to come from the gut brain. And the reason why we think women are more heart led is because, emotions are very much in the gut. And because women are more emotional, we sort of
Mhm.
associate that with the heart. But I would say the heart is neutral. The
Mhm.
heart is both masculine and feminine. And I agree 100% with you that we need more women in leadership, because not because women should be in leadership, but because we need balance.
Right.
For so long, the world has been sort of almost dominated by the masculine energy. Even the
Mhm.
women in power are quite masculine, or have been quite
Yes.
masculine,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so it's now we need the more we need balance. We need the sort of cerebral energy. We need the logic, the analysis, and the ego, and we also need the emotional aspect. We need the gut
Right.
point. We need the softer energies, the more softer skills coming into play. And when we can lead together, both
Mhm.
masculine and feminine, with more women really stepping up as women, not trying to be like men or not trying to replace men, but
Right.
actually just a beautiful balance, a beautiful blend, then I think we're going to be onto a winning formula.
I
But
agree with you on that. I
yeah,
definitely agree with you on that. And I understand now as you explain that part piece on the heart, right? And it's
yes,
neutral. I understand where you're
yes,
coming from. I totally get it.
great.
So,
Mhm.
um, the thing about it too, with some women in leadership, they feel that they have to be hard, and they have to, because
Yes,
this is how they're going to earn their respect, because they're in a male dominated field or world or whatever, and they feel that that's what they have to do, that this is who they have to be in order to get the respect, in order to get the recognition, to get to where they need to go.
absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. I was at a meeting of women on Tuesday, and so a couple of women were talking about leadership, and of course, one woman, she said, I'm a leader, I'm a CEO in a tech company, and everyone around me is all male, and how do you stand up when they're being very male? When they're, the sort of innuendos or jokes that are perhaps a little bit inappropriate around a woman, that might be fine in the locker room, the men's locker room or something. And so I said to her, well, you have to stand up. You absolutely have to stand up, because it's really important for women to start speaking their truth, and speaking in such a way you don't have to put them down. You don't have to be negative. You don't have to say, I'm a woman, so you can't say that. You just have to speak up in a way of saying, actually, I'd really like you to check in, as to who's around you, to be mindful of people, and me being a woman, and the fact that that might make a difference to the way that you speak or the language that you use. And I'll be really honest with you, I'm not sure she appreciated that. And so that's the other thing, that there are some women who still want to play victim to being
Right.
a woman in a male dominated world, and it's like, well, you don't have to be. Yes, it
Right.
takes courage to speak up,
Hmm.
and there was a whole conversation, yes, but they're a clique and I don't want to rock the boat. And I'm like, well, then that's what we have to do. We have to rock the boat, because how else is this ever going to change,
Right.
unless we stand up and speak our truth, but by being feminine. We don't
Right.
have to meet them at the energy level that they're at. We have to meet them
Right.
at the energy level we're at, with that softness, with that
Hmm.
ability to speak about things perhaps in a more sort of gentle way, or a much more loving way, or a much more nurturing way. But men do respond to it if you give them the opportunity.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. And like you said, just to piggyback on that, you can't always play that victim, right? At some point, you have to stand firm in what you believe, right? And use your voice. Our voice is our power, right? And
Exactly.
it's not what you say, it's how you say it and how you come across. And they have to know that when you say something, it's firm, it's concrete,
Yes.
and I'm serious about what I'm saying. And
Yes.
you can say it in a very tactful way, and to say, okay, listen, I don't appreciate such and such, you know, um, could you do this? Or I'd rather you not do that. I, I give you the respect as you get, I would like to get that same respect in return. If you don't stand up and voice your opinion, your thoughts, and what you're feeling, it's going to continue. It's going to continue, if not escalate.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's women uniting, supporting
Mhm.
each other in
Right.
this way of being. and really, really saying, absolutely, we all have to start doing this, because, you know, of course, any individual is going to be scared, you know, to change a whole structure of society, and so we have to unite, and we have to all come together and start speaking as one. When you realize that you've got literally, you know, the whole universe supporting you, when you put in real pure intention out there, like you say, you know, when you're really firm and clear and yet kind, of course, diplomatic, tactful, however you want to see it. But, you know, when you have that courage to do that, and that's one of the qualities I would say that, you know, springs from the heart space. You know, when the heart is in an open, expansive space, then one of the things that absolutely comes forward is courage. The other thing is, you know, the ability to speak your truth, because your heart won't allow you not to.
Right. Right. And there's definitely something freeing in that when you can be authentic to yourself and to who
Mm-hmm.
you really are. There's freedom in that. It brings a
There
lot of
it is.
freedom, you know, as well as
Yes,
empowerment. And I
absolutely.
say to anyone, stand in your truth, be authentic to yourself. You don't need anyone's approval, you know, because you're not
Absolutely.
living for them. So you don't need to seek the approval and validation from others. Just be centered in the truth within your own knowing within yourself that you matter, you're loved, you're not alone, and your voice matters. You know, your voice matters, and your self care also matters. So we have to put these things um, into where we're making it a part of our daily routine of our lives, you know. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, definitely. And I have another question for you, and I know it doesn't even seem if the time is moving, it doesn't even seem like it's been moving. It's just seemed like just a regular conversation we're having in so many
So
important
lovely.
topics. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So what role of how do we build high performing teams, you I would say, when distance, like right now, we are a lot of people are social distancing. How do we build not only teams, but how do we build connections, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do we still build those strong connections? Because maybe in some places in different parts of the world, they're still isolated. They're still on lockdown.
Yes.
How do we do that? How do we go about doing that?
Well, I think the answer is twofold. Practically speaking, I think we need to find a way of really, really, you know, rethinking how we connect, because the way we would connect before would be those, you know, little side conversations when you walk past somebody, you know, and you sit on their desk for 5 minutes, or at the water cooler, or getting a cup of coffee or tea or something. And that's how we used to connect. We'd wait for after work to go out and have a drink, maybe because it's been a tough day. We've got a project done. It's like, let's go out and celebrate, you know. And of course, if you're in isolation, or if you're on working on Zoom and everything, I think it's really important to make time to be vulnerable, you know, because that's
Mm,
what's really needed. And in fact, I would say that this is such an amazing opportunity, where before a lot of the talk was quite superficial. You know, if you
right,
meet somebody for a few minutes by the water cooler, it's not going to be in-depth conversation, but it's how you connect, because there's a heart resonance when you're around somebody and your hearts connect and your eyes meet, and there's a moment of recognition and connection, you know. And because we don't necessarily have that now, I would
mhm,
say maybe it's time to make real time to be vulnerable with somebody, to, you know, for
yes,
organizations to encourage people to share
mhm,
whatever it might be, to just share something outside of work, you know,
right,
something that is not to do with work, because otherwise, you know, you're just constantly work mode. And that's what we're missing. That's where we're isolated. It's not just about
yes,
the isolation, not being in offices or not seeing people so
hmm,
much, but it's the isolation of that contact, that human contact. I don't
right,
know about where you are, but people are still wearing masks. And everyone I speak to, they're like, it's terrible. You don't get to see the smile
right,
if you walk past a stranger, you know, that moment of recognition. I sometimes walk past somebody and I haven't recognized them because they're wearing a mask and they're wearing a
right.
hat, or maybe not
They're
now
wearing
because
a
it's
hat
warmer.
and the shades. It's like
Exactly.
intentionally they don't want to be seen. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And
I've
it's like,
gotten that too. I've
Yeah, and
seen
the
it. Yeah.
mask, and then you're just going, oh God. So, it's time to take those masks off. And I'm not
Right.
talking just physically, I'm talking emotionally and
Mm-hmm.
energetically, to be vulnerable and to make the organizations to actually create time for people to come together. And
Right.
yes, it might be on Zoom, it might be another way of connecting, it might be without the video, because sometimes, you can hear so much when you take away the visual,
Right.
because that sort of, that can be lovely, but sometimes there's so much in a voice, there's so much, and learn to pick up on those different things. So there's that aspect of being vulnerable, making the time, and actually companies really thinking about how they want to get people together and to
Right.
encourage that connection outside of work and outside
Yeah,
of just having meetings about work-related stuff. But the other way I would say is connecting deeply with your heart.
definitely.
Because if you think about telepathy, if you think about prophecy, if you think about, how do these things exist? Well, they exist inside of us, not outside of us. I can go deeply into meditation, and I can connect with you, and I can connect with what you're feeling, and I can connect with what's going on. We all can. We all have that intuitive ability to tune into others around us.
Mm-hmm.
If we silence the mind long enough, and think, oh, I'm isolated because I'm not seeing anybody, and actually go, actually, that isolation is just a mirror of what was happening anyway.
Right.
And what really needs to happen is to reconnect to my own heart, because that is where the expansiveness occurs, and that is where I am connected with myself. And suddenly I become a magnet, and I connect with you, I connect with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
How did we meet? I would say, it was definitely an inner connection
Right.
that drew us together.
Right.
And all the people
Definitely.
who come on your
Mm-hmm.
podcast, there's some resonance, something about
Right.
your intention with your
Mm-hmm.
podcast that spoke to my intention to getting my message out. And so
Right.
here we are having this conversation,
Right.
so I might
Yeah.
not have met you, because I won't walk past the street, because you live
Right.
abroad and I live in the UK. So
Okay, in the UK. Okay.
yes, so
Wow.
isn't that
Wow.
amazing?
Oh,
See, so
wow.
it's
That is
all about
wow.
perception.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That is beautiful. And you talked about, and I couldn't help to mention that I heard the baby in the background. I was like, is that a baby crying in the background? What's going on? Somebody feed that baby. He sound like he or she sound like he's really, had something going on. They cry, they have different cries for what they want.
They
You know that. There's
do.
different cries. And I learned
They
that on
do.
watching Oprah, one of Oprah's shows, different
Yeah,
cries for when they're hungry, when they're in pain.
it's
So,
so
but I
true.
heard it, so I was just like, okay, I hear that baby. So just in case it's like, oh, they acting like they don't hear. No, we hear it. We
We
hear
hear, but you see what I mean? Because you can see actually it's two levels down on the
it.
high street. So it's a little
Wow.
baby on the high street that
And
was
it's not
crying.
even in the home.
It's not in the home.
It's a baby outside somewhere. Oh my God.
What
Oh,
powerful lungs, right?
wow. Yes, his or her lungs is working just fine.
Exactly. But
Yeah,
the
but
amazing thing is you heard it,
yeah, I did. I did.
right?
Yeah,
And
I did
isn't that
hear
amazing?
it.
We can hear so much if we just
Yeah,
let
I did.
ourselves. Yeah.
I sure did. But one of the things that you mentioned about being vulnerable, so many people are afraid of being vulnerable. And
Yes.
I myself was one of them, didn't want to open up all the way, not to even the person, like if you're with your mate, your partner, to not be, you're still holding something back. But it's
Yes.
when you're vulnerable that you're able to see things even clearer, and you're doing it, but not with anything of expecting anything in return,
Yes.
and being okay with whatever the outcome, because we're trying to protect ourselves. So we're trying to
Absolutely.
protect ourselves from the pain, from the hurt, the past experiences, but it's being vulnerable that allows us to be able to receive more and to truly be even more authentic with ourselves. So that's what I
Absolutely.
found is my own personal experience with vulnerability. And it's okay to be vulnerable.
Well, I really, really love that. Thank you for sharing,
Oh, you're
how
welcome.
yeah, how you feel. Because
Right.
I would say that fits in perfectly with what I say about healing the heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We all have the capacity to be vulnerable. The reason
Right.
why we are not able to do that is because we have layers and layers of stories that tell us we're not safe being vulnerable,
Right.
putting our heart on our sleeve, letting
Mm-hmm.
someone know how we really feel. And because of that, we've learned to protect our heart, protect our heart, protect our heart. That's what's isolated us.
Right.
That's what made us feel so alone in the world, even in a
Right.
relationship, as you said. And so when we clear the debris in our hearts, when we clear
Mhm.
the emotional and energetic debris that's held there, we let go of those stories and we start learning to feel safe in the world, feel safe with our emotions, safe with our vulnerability, then I really feel that the world will begin to open up
Yeah.
and begin to feel safe and be okay being vulnerable with our emotions, with our feelings. That's when we're going to be able to come together.
Yes.
Because until then, we can't. We are going to be isolated in silos and living alone.
Mm-hmm.
What happened last year was just a reflection of
Yeah.
what was already happening
Yeah.
on some level to each of us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I really enjoyed this interview. And I've interviewed people before and great, great, wonderful ladies. Um, and one thing I haven't done, a sidebar, I don't know why I haven't interviewed any men. Maybe that's something I could work on too. Because I mean, the show is for podcast is for women, but
Yes.
I just haven't. I've just connected with my sisters. I don't know. But anyway,
Yes,
I
yeah, but
digress.
that's wonderful too, because women
Yeah,
need the voice. There's been plenty of
right,
voice for women,
right.
men, yeah.
But what I was going to say was that I really enjoyed this interview more so because it touched on the spirituality, it touched on the heart, right? And being able to, for people to be able to open their hearts, right? And to be
Yes,
vulnerable.
yes.
You are one of the most impressionable and amazing guests that I've had on the show, even though I haven't had that many. I've had some guests, but
Yes.
I really resonated with you and connected with you. I really had. I don't know, it's because you're from India. My ancestors were from India also, so they
Really?
migrated to Trinidad. That's how. Yeah,
Yeah.
on my father's side, they migrated to Trinidad. So, and my
Mhm.
last name Roopchand, it's Indian. So,
Yes. That's what
but
I thought.
yes,
Yeah.
it is Indian.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Beautiful.
Yes,
Beautiful.
it is. So yeah,
Mhm.
I enjoyed this interview so much. Now, before closing, is there any other final thoughts, anything that you'd like to share with our guests that you are doing, or any message that you would like to share with our guests listening?
Well, the only thing I would say is that, I thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like there's
Mhm.
no time has passed. I really feel like
Right.
kindred spirits
Yes.
and
Yes.
and beautiful souls of the earth coming together. And it's lovely that you have a bit of Indian heritage as well. I think
Yes.
we all come from the same origin
Mhm.
ultimately, but it's so
Yes.
beautiful to connect with you. I would love for any of your, listeners to just join the Heart Renaissance
Yes.
community. It's a free community. We do post lots of meditations and talks, and we'll post a podcast and various things, as well as running courses from there. But the reason why I'd love for people to join and to be active is it is a way of connecting people who are passionate about the things that you and I have talked about,
Right.
and to come together and recognize it is time for a heart renaissance. It is time for us to go back to that lost wisdom of the heart where love comes from. Love is never lost, it is only ever covered up. And we really, really want to, spread the word and to begin to heal ourselves, to heal humanity, and to have
Mhm.
a positive impact on the planet that we're living in.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed speaking with you too. Thank you so much for your
You're
time and
welcome.
having me on your podcast.